You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey. I did it again, Jimmy. I don't know why I did that again, but I did it again. What I'm trying to do, well, first of all, hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
I'll be totally honest because I like answering that question honestly and not just doing the traditional, I'm fine, how are you? My head is swimming. I mean, it's the morning after signing day. I'm prepared to do this show and other shows and interviews and post on On3 about signing day, adding Danny Lewis, looking at the class as a whole, what's next. And then I wake up and I'm finding out that LT Overton has in fact reclassified and doesn't have Alabama in his top 5. And that's sort of a big thing. And then there's these weird rumors coming out of Auburn that I'm still trying to piece together, but that's hard because I've been doing a lot of interviews and I hadn't had a lot of time to investigate this in between shows. But what's going on at Auburn seems to be fascinating. And then the Pete Golding DUI happens, which is big news, unfortunately, for Pete. And my head is swimming. I'm trying to just, man, I hope you don't ask me too many hard questions because I'm swimming over here.
I don't ever ask you a lot of hard questions, so I don't think that'll start today. But a couple of things. We were also, and we probably still will, going to discuss whatever kind of BS, total just farce of a rant Jimbo Fisher went off on.
Then there's that.
That was a complete farce. And so here's the thing. You're right. First of all, it was signing day. Then before that even, Auburn had made their new offensive coordinator who had played football all his life, had loved football all his life. He went to Auburn for 1 month and said, you know what? I don't really like football anymore. That's tough. I've never heard somebody leave Auburn to say, I want to be with my family. I thought family was their thing. Then Jimbo Fisher goes off on a rant, which makes no sense, by the way, because his whole reason for the rant was NIL doesn't help us. You've never signed so many 5 stars ever. It's the best class in the history of classes. And it's just a total coincidence. It happens during NIL. I don't care here's the thing. Nobody cared it happened during NIL. Nobody gives a crap. And nobody's saying y'all didn't work hard. Of course y'all worked hard to get those guys. So why are you mad at everybody? You're mad at Lane Kiffin? If you're mad at Lane Kiffin now, guess what? He's going to piss you off more. Here's something that I've found out. If you're mad at Lane Kiffin or Auburn Twitter, you're going to get pissed off even more because they're not going to stop. That's what they do now. Lane Kiffin wants to egg you on, and Auburn Twitter wants to egg you on. So that you might as well just learn to live with it. And don't let Lane Kiffin piss you off like this. And then you have to lie. I mean, I don't think he intentionally lied, but he said something about Nick Saban and the Bryce Young thing. But Bryce Young was already on campus. So he didn't intentionally lie, but he just didn't tell a full truth. And through all of that, after all of that, and National Signing Day, and A&M gets Shamar Stewart, and there's dudes everywhere, and you're down, you're not down there now because you're in Tuscaloosa. You're usually at the Senior Bowl, and the Senior Bowl's going on, and Pete Golding literally says, let me hold your beer because I want to drink it while I'm driving. It's amazing how many stories have come out this February. We just lamented on the last podcast and YouTube thing that we do that there's not enough news in February. That's why we want National Signing Day in February. And then February said, oh, you want news? Okay, here's all the news right here for you. And that's exactly how that went down.
There's so much news out there. You know what we should do? we should
Start
have
a
a
new show?
we should have a podcast to discuss it all, because there's too much for us to just share between ourselves. Let's share it with everybody else. I'm the Jimbo Fisher stuff to me was a little funny, and I just say that because even if you take everything he said as truthful, and I'm sure it wasn't, if you take everything he said as truthful, I'd be, Jimbo, why are you so defensive? Why do you care? Why do you beat Alabama on the field? You became the first assistant to beat Nick. You had that big moment. Your program is clearly improving. Then you signed what some are calling the greatest signing class of all time. You should just be smoking a cigar with your feet up on the desk, counting down the days to camp. I mean, he should be. Why is he so defensive and angry? I thought things were going great. Why are you mad? I don't understand that. I mean, I understand Lane saying things that got under his skin, but gosh, I just thought it was too much. And hey, you know what? It's very easy to calm down A&M people. All you got to do is say 8-4. And I'll say, I mean, I picked them to be a playoff team a year ago, and I even said all during the offseason, and I took a lot of shit for it from Alabama fans. I took a lot of shit last summer when I said I beat Alabama, and I did it because I really thought A&M had a very good team, and they were going to be tough to beat on the road in that environment. But they finished 8-4. They lost to Arkansas and Mississippi State, and then they lose to LSU at the end. That, Jimbo, that's outrageously bad coaching. That's bad You had Nick does a great job. He's also got the best team every week. Jimbo, when you lose to a team and you've got more good players than they've got, that's bad coaching. That's just bad coaching, and that's what Jimbo is guilty. I say guilty of bad coaching. And if I was Jimbo, I'd be working on doing my job better, because he's got more talent than 8-4 suggests, and that's what he needs to focus on, doing his damn job better.
Yeah, that is very true. And here's what's funny: everybody's in love with A&M right now, and I guess they should be. I mean, look, they had an amazing class. And I really didn't want to spend the first segment on A&M. I didn't, but I mean, it sort of just turned out this way. So let's keep it going because it's almost over. But you know what I think Jimbo Fisher is about to find out? And you and I have talked about this. You and I were ahead of curve on this. I mean, I don't get to brag about things we say very often or do or accomplish.
It's not,
but
not a good idea.
You and I were very much ahead of the curve on this. You know where Nick Saban excels? I mean, yeah, he excels at recruiting. He excels at the X's and O's. He excels at managing our insane fan base, and managing his coaching staff, his staff in general, the university as a whole. But his true calling is managing egos. And so when you recruit all these 5-stars, and you're loaded to the gills with guys who are alpha males, and they're big and they're strong and they're fast and they're used to doing it their way or the highway, and they take the highway on their own accord. Saban does a fantastic job of managing that. Now, here, Jimbo Fisher, this is going to be you with a bunch of 5-stars on your team that are used to being the man, and you're not going to let them be they can't all be the man, because there's not enough spaces for them to be there. You've got to figure out a way to wedge all of these massive egos into Cal Field, and it's gonna be tough. But Nick Saban's the only one I've known who's been able to do it on a consistent basis. People can do it for a year or two, or intermittently, but it's a very, very difficult thing to do, and it's a very difficult thing to manage. So good luck with that, bruh.
Yeah, and one thing that everyone talk about NIL money is the reason that they signed this class, and that's why Jimbo was so defensive yesterday. Let's pretend that NIL didn't exist. That A&M's got one thing they can offer with a straight face that's more difficult for the Alabama Georgias to say, and that's playing time. That's playing time, because while A&M is increasing their talent level, and while they will be preseason top 10 next season, they'll be preseason top 10 despite not even finishing in the top 25 this previous season. They'll still be preseason top 10. But for a preseason top 10, I think Jimbo Fisher can look a star freshman, a star recruit in the face and say, we need immediate starters. We have playing time. Start for us. It's very difficult for Alabama to say that. As a matter of fact, I was asked this morning on one of the shows, name a defensive player Alabama just signed. Do you think will be in the starting lineup next fall? And I'm like, you're going to have to give me 15 minutes to figure that out, because Alabama's loaded on defense. No freshman's getting on the field much. I mean, there's an opening at inside linebacker that either Deontay Lawson or Jalen Moody's going to take. It's pretty much the only opening there is. Every other spot is filled by a veteran player or somebody who started last year. I don't know exactly what A&M, I'm not professing to know their projected starting offense and defense. I'll just tell you right now, it's not as filled with famous college players like Alabama. Everybody knows Jordan Battle's coming back. Will Anderson's coming back. Dallas Turner's coming back. Tim Smith's coming back. Byron Young's coming back. Kool-Aid McKinstry coming back. I think A&M can say, hey, we're a top 10 program. We're going to compete for a national championship, and we need freshmen ready to play. And that's tough to beat on the recruiting scene, regardless of NIL money.
Jimmy, I need to tell everybody about betonline.net. Betonline.net is just the place to go. There might be less football being played, but betonline.net has way more stuff to bet on this playoff season. From scores, totals, player performance props, to the next football coach who's going to get fired, whatever it is, go to betonline.net and you can bet on it. BetOnline is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And we've only got one game left. Super Bowl, I guess you got the Pro Bowl too, so you can get in on that. And it's not just football, though, at betonline.net. There's basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC, all kind of odds, everything. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. It's betonline.net now, betonline.net. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, that's where the game starts, Jimmy. BetOnline. All right, so let's talk about Pete Golding here for a second.
Let's.
You know, look, I'm not throwing stones here at people who get DUIs. There are folks who are listening to this podcast who's gotten a DUI, and there are multiple even. I have family members that have gotten DUIs, multiple even. And sometimes it's you're kind of caught on a technicality. I know there's an argument out there that you should never even have keys near you when you've been drinking, and I believe that. I understand. I also believe people make mistakes. I also believe that we have Uber and Lyft and all these other things, and those are widely available in Tuscaloosa. So why in the hell he didn't call one of those, I have no idea. But I also know drinking impairs your judgment, and sometimes you think, hey, I can handle this. You probably can't. So it's just best not to do it. It's really stupid to do it when you're a coach who's embattled and you've been the whipping boy of the fan base. Granted, Saban seems to have your back, and that's all that matters. But it's a bad look. There's no other way to spin it. I don't think it makes him the worst person in the world. But this was a lapse in judgment, and luckily nobody was hurt apparently, or anybody had an accident or whatever. It's just the problem I see with it is when a coach does something like this, it can be difficult, I would say, to tell players, hey, get in position. You're going to screw up. Oh, you mean screw up like get a DUI? I mean, I just don't like it when coaches make a mistake this silly. I mean, I understand making mistakes. I think everybody can deal with that. But getting a DUI these days is a little bit more than making a mistake, right? I mean, there's too many ways to not get one.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm not making any excuse because there's not one, and I'll go in a rant. But I'm wondering if when you're drunk, when you're Pete Golding, and you're. I mean, Pete Golding is a celebrity in Tuscaloosa. Nowhere else. Trust me, he can go to the mall in Atlanta and not get mobbed by fans. But he's a celebrity here in this little town. I say here because I'm in Tuscaloosa. I wonder if after you're drunk and you're about to go home and it's 2 a.m. and you're drunk and someone suggests, or you suggest to yourself, maybe I should call an Uber because I'm too drunk to drive. I wonder if in an argument with yourself, you say, if I call an Uber, then next morning I've got to read on a message board that, hey, I'm an Uber driver and I picked up Pete Golding at 2 a.m. and he was tanked, and it was hilarious because he was so drunk. And this is what he said about Coach Saban. You know what I'm saying? I wonder if the reason that, quote, a celebrity like a Pete Golding doesn't use Uber in those situations, that's not an excuse. I'm just wondering, like, what because people like, I've read this all morning. What was he thinking? So I'm like, that's a good question. What was he thinking?
Yes.
And that's what came to mind for me. That's, I think, a thought you might have when you're drunk is, I'm not going to put up with reading about on the message board what the Uber driver tells people. But that being here nor there, it was a big mistake. He's going to pay for this somehow. I don't believe he's going to be fired. I don't believe that. He might. That could happen. I'm sure he's worried about that. It could happen. I don't think so. I think Coach Saban's going to treat this no differently than when his players make mistakes, and it's going to be treated in the same manner. And I happen to know sort of how that works. I mean, not inside baseball here, but the first thing to figure out when we have players like this is they sit down, they figure out, okay, is this a college kid acting like a college kid, or is this a problem? So Coach Saban will make Pete sit down with professionals to figure out if this was a one-off, if this was just a mistake, or if, hey, he needs some level of help, which could be very minor or very major. I think that's what they'll focus on. They won't focus on, well, he made a mistake, so he's out. And this is what my rant is going to be. Don't be the fan who doesn't like Pete because you don't like his defense and you think Alabama should hire Jeremy Pruitt because that's what you think. Don't be the fan that rips Golding up and down for days on social media because of this mistake, because you don't like Pete and you want him replaced because of football reasons. Hey, if you have a legitimate anti-drunk driving take that you apply in every circumstance, if you apply it in every circumstance, a professional, high-ranking person should not have their job if they do something like that. If you agree that a doctor that works at UAB, if he gets a DUI, he shouldn't be employed by UAB any longer. If you agree that guy should be fired, then it's okay if you think Pete should be fired. But don't be the guy who doesn't like Pete because you don't think he's a good defensive coordinator. And this is your opportunity to be loud and say don't be. That's not fair. Be fair across the board. If you think they should all be fired when this happens, doctors, CEOs, the city bank manager, fire them all. But don't be just Pete should be fired or just football coaches should be fired because of the message that it sends to young kids. If that's the case, then should high school teachers that get DUI, should they be fired from their jobs? Because you're firing them too, right? You're not firing just the football teachers. Aren't you firing all the teachers? So just don't be hypocritical about it. And if you're not hypocritical, then say what you want. So that's my rant.
I think that's a good rant, and I think that's very fair. If he had a recruit in the car, okay, I think that's fine. You know, I'm not.
Which one?
I
want to
not
know who it
for,
is first.
What?
I would want to know who it is first.
Was it a 5-star? Were we going to
Yeah.
get it? I think that's a good point. Your point about the Uber driver potentially spreading rumors on message boards, I think, is valid. My counter to that would be, okay, if that were to happen, I would assume you're the law talking guy. I would assume that if I were Pete Golding, I would then call Uber and say, y'all are about to write me a check because one of your quote unquote contracted employees just would it be libel or slander? It's libel when it's written, right?
Libel is written
Yeah.
and slander is said out loud. It's
Okay.
both under the umbrella of defamation. Yeah. But I didn't say that that's a legitimate reason for Pete not calling Uber. I'm just wondering what might be in your head when you're like, I'm not going to deal with that. And because I'm sure Pete, by the way, Pete, now that you're sober and able to better think, what I would tell you is if that was your line of reasoning, don't you think now you'd have been better off dealing with the unproven allegations from an Uber driver as opposed to what's very proven on the Northport City Police website?
But I mean, this is true. If you look, if you drink, if you're so inclined to have a snifter of port at Christmas, aka the way Homer Simpson drinks, then that literally, literally, you talk yourself into anything. And when I was at Alabama specifically, and this is a horrible thing to say and admit, but I mean, there were times I drank and drove, and it was stupid, and it was stupid then, and I was luckily not caught. I don't do that anymore because I have too much at risk. I had too much at risk then, but when you're drinking and you're young and you're stupid, and you have a girl that says, "Hey, um, what you doing?" Sometimes you make bad decisions. And so I made several bad decisions, and so did she, whoever that girl was,
Yeah,
if she was with me.
no, that's a great point, and I'm not going to admit the same thing, but yeah, I'll admit the same thing. I mean, I think again, it's getting back to the hypocritical part. I'm not saying anybody that's drinking drove should just let Pete off the hook for this.
Exactly.
We all, me, you, we deserved worse than what happened to us, and I don't do that anymore either. For the same, you just as you get older, you just learn about what you're always risking. But just don't be hypocritical about this. And also, every DUI is different. I'll tell a story now. It's old enough. I'm not going to talk about which player. It was a long time ago. It wasn't too recent. But one time, in terms of the fire him, kick him off the team, you always see stuff like that. One time, we had a player at Alabama that had too much to drink and realized he had too much to drink, and told his girlfriend, or the girl, or that particular night's girlfriend, that, look, I had too much to drink. I need to stay here. And she's like, all right, because he knew driving back to his football apartment was going to be too dangerous. And that happened about 1 a.m. So he did. He slept at her place, didn't bring it. He just, who knows what happened between two consenting college adults, but he stayed at her place that night, even though he didn't exactly bring a bag or plan to stay. And he slept it off. Got up at 6:30 in the morning so he could sneak back into his apartment, and none would be the wiser. And on his drive back at 6:30 in the morning, he's sleepy because he just woke up. He didn't drive. He turned out of the apartment complex and was immediately pulled over for not completely stopping at a stop sign. And he was very sleepy. And the police officer was like, "You sure you're not drunk?" And he's like, "I drank last night, but I just woke up. I'm fine." They gave him a DUI, and he was still drunk from the night before, but right at the 0.08 or whatever it was. But he was still drunk from the night before. But yes, and he was rightfully charged with DUI, because you can't be riding around drunk. 0.08, you do get charged for that. But when the whole facts get back to the coaching staff, and they're like, "Look, he tried to do the right thing. He turned down driving when he knew he was drunk. He thought he was fine. He thought he slept it off. He ran a stop sign. There wasn't anybody on the road." And what the coaches did was that he didn't get suspended. They just put him through the program to determine, okay, is this a problem? Are you a problem drinker? And did what was best for the kid. And meanwhile, there's posts all over social media: kick him off the team. He should be out. He shouldn't be on the team anymore because he got a DUI. And I just tell the story to say that, look, every single situation is different. Yeah. Years ago, I had a player get a DUI because he was on a scooter on the quad. Now that
I know a guy who got a DUI on a lawnmower. Now he was on Highway 280, so that probably didn't help. But okay, Jimmy, hold on. We gotta take a break when it comes to the podcast. I gotta add some ads in here, but I don't know how to add in ads to the video, so we're not going to do that. It's just going to be another awkward pause. So just hang tight.
That's Locked On. If me and you can act out the ads.
Oh, that would be great. You know what we could do? The ones where it's the progressive ones where you turn into your parents.
Right. We're gonna do this one day. We're gonna piss off somebody, but we're gonna act out an ad, and won't even follow the read. We'll just come up with our own ad, but it will be killer. It'll be kick ass.
I'll be the doctor, and you'll be the guy with erectile dysfunction.
Oh, I said we have to act.
That's reality TV. All right, so Jimmy, we're gonna make this. we're gonna make this segment super quick. You know, I look, we're locked on Bama, and so we about Bama. We talked about Danny Lewis yesterday, and that was the only guy that we got in the signing class. So we've talked about A&M today. LSU has added some other dudes in the transfer portal. They had a pretty good day, I would guess. I mean, their class, they got Harold Perkins. That was nice for them. I hope Ole Miss has had a nice transfer portal. Lane Kiffin has declared himself the king of the transfer portal. USC, who is not in the SEC, but they got Caleb Williams. They got a bunch of dudes. They're going to be a player in the playoffs next year, I think. But I come back to Auburn just for a second because they are looking for another offensive coordinator. They didn't sign anybody yesterday. Javarius Johnson, who I really love. Look, truth be told, I mean, I thought Javarius Johnson was a thing. I thought he could be a really good college player. Like, I mean, no, he's not going to win the Biletnikoff, but I thought he would be really, really good. And I thought he was underutilized at Auburn. He's in the transfer portal now. There's a lot of problems going on there. You mentioned some other rumors, which we don't really need to get into right now because they're so unsubstantiated. But there's a lot of issues over there football wise. Their basketball team is kicking chicken, but the football team has some problems. And boy, you know, that's Alabama's arch rival, so I think it's relevant here.
Yeah, those rumors are totally unfair. As a matter of fact, when I first read them, it only took me 8 seconds to come up with an extremely plausible explanation as to all of it. And who knows what, it's all going to come out in the next few days that he's either guilty or sometimes with football fans, you're guilty until proven innocent. And that's probably going to happen, and see, it gets back to my rant. All the Auburn fans that I've already seen enough from Harsin, they want him out. They're going to use this. They're going to use this to try to get him out. And it's so hypocritical. It's so not unfair. It's unethical. It's just, hey, if he's doing something that he deserves to lose his job over, then let that come out. But the ranting and harping on, hey, I don't like this guy, so something bad might be out there, so I'm going to use it to just pound the guy on social media. Don't be those people. And as far as a 21-year-old girl that uproots from Boise, a 21-year-old girl that uproots from Boise and moves with the Harsin or follows Harsin to Auburn and then works for Auburn football. Harsin happens to be related to a 21-year-old that moved from Boise to Auburn and maybe just one of her friends. I mean, I came up with that in 8 seconds. And maybe that is a complete logical explanation.
Look, there are plenty of reasons to not want him as your football coach. You don't have to make up stuff. And I'm not saying this is made up. I mean, it could be true, but it sure.
I'm not saying it's made up either. I don't know. I'm just saying that there is an explanation because there's a 21-year-old that lives in his house that also moved from Boise to Auburn.
And Jimmy, here's the other thing. This is not a unique Auburn thing, by the way. I mean, Alabama fans do this too. Every fan does this. But I find it funny that, everybody is, I mean, literally, if you go to an Auburn message board right now, they're killing, most of them, I would say, the vast majority are killing Harsin, or like saying, hey, the writing's on the wall. And I'm kind of that way. I mean, the Sun Tzu philosophy of if it must be done eventually, it must be done immediately. I get that. I used to say that about Mike Dubose. And Mike Shula and a bunch of other coaches we've had, but
bunch of other
mics. But it's funny because Bruce Pearl is a guy who came into Auburn with a show cause, a history of NCAA trouble, and he has since gotten your program on probation again, directly or indirectly. Yet that man is a god in Lee County because he's winning. It's the winning that does it. If Harsin had pulled off the Iron Bowl, if Auburn had somehow kept us out of the end zone, do you think everybody you'd see all these rumors about Harsin and other things going on off the field, and there'd be all these other talks, everybody'd be bitching about offensive coordinators and whatever? No, because they'd be like, hey, let's give this guy a chance. He just beat Alabama. He just, if he hadn't given up the 18-point lead or 28-point lead, whatever the hell it was, against Mississippi State, do you think people would be ranting about him? No. It's all about winning. We're all that way. So, all right.
And isn't that really pathetic of us? And by us, I'm talking about
all of us.
Being college football. Isn't that just so pathetic? And it's not what we need to talk about the whole show, but what scandal would it take for Alabama fans to all agree that Nick Saban needs to go? What level of I'm just telling you, and because of that amount of winning, it would take a scandal. I mean, he could, the FBI could show up and arrest him for being an ISIS, and Alabama fans would be like, yeah, but when they blew up that building, no one was in it.
Yeah. Or if Nick Saban hired Harvey Weinstein as his defensive coordinator, we'd all be like, he has had to defend himself a lot. He might know about defense.
He knows a lot about defense. No, I'm just saying the level of and that's what I mean. The level of scandal it would take for Alabama fans to be off the Saban bandwagon. And conversely, Harsin may not even be the biggest scandal. Potentially could just be that Harson's daughter's friend moved to Auburn with them. And that's the level of scandal. And people are like, he's out. He's a perv. He's out. He let his daughter's friend move to Auburn too.
Conversely, Jimmy, if Nick Saban were to go on a 5-game losing streak next year, and Nick Saban then hired, we're going to have the brilliant, somehow related to Vince Lombardi descendant of Mother Teresa come in to coach our offense, everybody would say, get you and your Bible thumping jackass out of Tuscaloosa now. That's exactly how that would be handled.
That's exactly right.
All about the W's and the L's. But Jimmy, we got to go. Thanks everybody for watching, listening. Please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment. We want to answer your questions. Most of your questions are probably like, hey, who are you guys and why do you have a podcast? We will answer that. So anyway, thank you guys and roll tide.
That's my question.
Say roll tide.
Oh, roll tide.